Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I've been watching you. You've been answering questions about the consultation with Congress, and I know that you're sensitive to that. And I was wondering if at any time during this process did you yourself recommend or suggest to anyone in the White House, the NSC, any of the parties, any of the people involved, that they should consult or notify the Congress prior to May 31st?
Congressman, through this process, which I have in front of me, the deputies' meetings at the White House, principals' meeting, which I'm a principal, all of these things were discussed. Notification, the risks, which we've talked about today. I support the decision that was made on notification. I didn't particularly like it. I think a lot of people didn't, but we felt in the interest of not risking any further Bo Bergdahl and the opportunity to get him back, and maybe even his life, this was the smartest way to do it.
Well, I understand it was discussed, but did you yourself suggest or recommend that some notification or consultation be made prior to May 31st?
We all made different suggestions, recommendations as to at least exploring what happens if we don't, should we, what's the downside of that, what's the downside if we do. So all these things were
So you
discussed.
did?
Well, we all talked about it. It wasn't just a recommendation. It was, we went around the table. We talked about it, all of us.
So you suggested maybe we should talk to Congress or give some notification?
Everybody suggested
did, not just
that
you.
we talk about this, we look at it, go up and down. No formal recommendation was made by me. At the end, we discussed it. We all came out in the same place, that the risk was just too great. We didn't want to take the risk.
Mr. President, let me ask you a question. I was interested in the colloquy you've had with several people over this constitutional issue. Is it your position, is it the position of the Obama administration, that after the President of the United States signs a law and it becomes law, that he can, on his own, after consultation with legal counsel, the Justice Department, whoever, say, I don't have to comply with a particular provision of that law without going to court first?
Pardon me, I can only speak for myself, but I think that the President may act in the exercise of his constitutional authority as he understands it and as circumstances demand without necessarily going to court.
How is that different from the position that people in the Nixon administration took during Watergate, that if the President does it, it's legal? How was that different?
I wouldn't even know where to begin to answer that. I think it's
begin with the beginning.
I'll begin with the beginning.
Can the President of the United States on his own decide he can do whatever he wants to do because he thinks he's got some constitutional protection, despite a clear provision of the law to the contrary? Can he do that?
Well, the way I would answer that is this President faced a service member in peril and in captivity and exercised a constitutional duty and authority to recover that service member in circumstances in which it was the judgment of the leading policymakers of this country that the circumstances was not going to permit the 30-day notification. That's a very concrete response to what was a very compelling situation. So,
well, I understand that you're saying that under these particular circumstances, you're not saying that it's a blanket thing, but you think under certain circumstances, the President of the United States, after he has signed a law and it has become law, can decide there's certain parts of it he doesn't have to comply with without going to a court and getting a determination about his constitutional basis for doing so.
There are circumstances, and this was one.
And one final question for you, Secretary Hagel. Could you please provide us assurance that there will be no unlawful command influence related to the case of Sergeant Bergdahl?
Absolutely, and I've said it here in answer to a couple of questions before.
Thank you, sir. I yield back.